we almost pulled the comeback. We did exactly what the Rockets did, got down big, and then made a run, but it was too little, too late. But there are big takeaways, good and bad, with this game. And we're going to break it down here on Spurs Digest with your host, Keenan Warner. I want to shout out to Brian. He's been doing a lot of these post-game, pre-game things, and he's been killing it. But I appreciate all of you guys. We're still close to 2K. We're on the road to 2K. So if you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Grow with us. Take a spur of the moment to get every Spurs moment moving forward. But the final, 106 to 101. The Houston Rockets do get the best of us. Going back, we had just played them on Saturday. We got the best of them. Wemby had a great game, 29. He wasn't so great efficiency-wise on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively and on the boards, he was great. Made some plays down the stretch. But overall, this game was youth, a little bit of youth. There was a couple rotational pieces that I didn't love, especially towards the end of the game, but a lot of fight, heart, and effort was shown during this game, and I love that because we were able to, if we're going to continue to fight and scratch and claw at these games, these L's will turn to W's because we do have the talent. There was a few glaring things, something that I think Devin Vassell will fix when he comes back here for the San Antonio Spurs. I took notes throughout this entire game. It was actually fun to see and fun to do. But overall, first quarter killed. It was Jalen Green getting downhill. There was no offensive continuity. It was turning the ball over. We'll get into a little bit more of it right here as we go through. We're going to kind of break it down quarter to quarter as we talk about this, but it was turning the ball over. Second quarter, we scored with them. We found our offense once that second quarter was going on, and it ebbed and flowed, but the offense was there. It's really that first quarter getting down so much, we were not able to bring it back, and Jalen Green was a problem. 36 points, 24 of which came in the first half. He had 6 threes in the first half as well. He was cooking, and he was continuing to cook, and we did not do a great job of forcing the ball out of his hands. We did in the second half. That's definitely the second half of judgment from Gregg Popovich, from Chris Paul talking there, and the rest of the coaching staff. But that first half, it was just come off a ball screen, got it. Okay, we're going to get the switch we wanted, but instead of hedging on the switch, it was okay, we're going to let him go one-on-one on Champagnie. We're going to let him go one-on-one on whomever, and he was getting to whatever spot he wanted to, and when he got to that spot, he was making buckets. And Jalen Green is a proven scorer in this league, and he can get buckets in a hurry, and obviously he has some bounce, as we saw there too. But Sengun was rendered. He was good, but it wasn't great. Wemby definitely did a good job. Got him into foul trouble. He didn't get into a rhythm. Jabari Smith started the game pretty hot and then had a shot every here and there. And then Fred VanVleet with that big three at the end. I mean, we've seen that on the world's biggest stage. Sorry, I should say on the NBA's biggest stage. Don't want Noah Lyles to come after me. But on the NBA's biggest stage, when in 2018 he was with the Raptors, Warriors Game 6, it was big three after big three after big three in the fourth quarter to propel the Raptors over the Warriors to capture their first championship. But Fred VanVleet is no stranger to big shots, and that was a walk in the park for him. Nothing scared about that shot whatsoever. This is going to be a little bit harder to see because I wanted to get the whole entire picture, but we're going to kind of break this down quarter to quarter. There was 7 turnovers for the San Antonio Spurs in the first quarter. Things just weren't flowing. There was a bit... The rotation of Wemby, I know that he takes him at like 5 minutes into the first and brings him back in towards the end of the first. I feel like sometimes it's hard for him to catch a rhythm early on in the game. And so if he's not demanding the ball early, it kind of makes it a little tough. One of the things that I did write down was I feel that sometimes he allows the physicality of other players to get to him. Like, he has to work through it. Like, late in the game, he was like, okay, Sengun's on me with the switch, everyone move out of the way. He didn't score in that possession, but it was fine. He hit the step back three. It was, okay, Dillon Brooks is in the post. Well, instead of, like, just kicking the ball out, sometimes his unselfishness is not to a fault, but it's just the way he attacks. Dillon Brooks, he has the mismatch of about almost a foot. Like, Dillon Brooks is 6'6", want to be 7'4". And I understand that Dillon Brooks definitely has some girth to him. He can push him away from his spots. But, like, that last play, or one of the last plays of the game, when he just bang, turn over that right shoulder and just hit the 18-footer, it was like he just took an 18-foot practice shot because Dillon Brooks cannot put a hand up because he's just too tall. I feel like there are just times where Wemby kind of goes away from that, and it's not even that he's like scared or anything like that. It's just, it takes too much. Oh, it's not too much work, but he doesn't want to stop the ball. And I know that's a little bit of pop, that's a little bit of trying to get his players involved, but there are times where I think he just needs to go for it, and I think that will help get the offense rolling and moving, because when he has to be doubled, then you can get things going. Sochan wasn't the most efficient throughout the entirety of the game, but I love the way he played. I think that over the offseason, he truly understood his role, and he's really playing like an Aaron Gordon-ish style role, as I've talked about before. He's playing in the dunker spot. He's getting downhill. He's actually, he'll sometimes bring up the ball a little bit, really more, not really to control the offense, but just to do it. But he is playing off ball well. The shot from the outside needs to do a little bit, but overall, this first quarter wasn't a great first quarter. As we know, that was really where they lost the entirety of the game. And then the second quarter goes on, and things started to pick up, especially towards the second half of the second quarter. You had Sochan going. Chris Paul was matching Jalen Green 3 for 3 for a little bit of time there. He almost had 3, but then they called the weird offensive foul that I didn't like. I thought that was not great. Another 6 turnovers. So you got 13 turnovers in the first half. That's not going to get it done. And that was something that we saw in the preseason too. We had that 21 turnover game. Something that you're like, okay, is it going to actually turn over to be a problem? And so far, 18 turnovers a game is what they're averaging, which is tied for 6th worst in the entirety of the NBA. So they are a high turnover team, and you're going to get that with a lot of youth. You've got players who are trying to learn how to play with each other, and then you've got Chris Paul turning the ball over obviously it's 3 games in the season. It's nothing crazy, but he is turning the ball over at a rate that he doesn't normally. I mean, we've seen this guy go 18, 19, 20 assists with no turnovers. Only one time in his career has he actually averaged 3 turnovers in a season. He's on pace to do that now. Again, 3 games, it's Chris Paul. We don't assume that to be a long-standing thing. But that second quarter, they started to get the offensive rhythm going. And this is Jalen Green's shot chart, 8 of 10. And you just saw him lights up the entirety of the San Antonio Spurs, the 6-3, 6 of 7 from the floor, got to the basket a little bit, but there was just not enough defensive attention sent to him, especially in the second quarter, as I was speaking on. But in the second half, they did a much better job. Going into the third quarter, Sochan really started to pick it up. He was getting downhill. The team really started to pick it up. That run that they went on from the end of the third quarter to the beginning of the fourth quarter was great Spurs basketball, and that's really the peak of what this team. You had Malachi Branham. I mean, I loved what he was able to do. He was shooting the ball with confidence. He was giving the offensive spark that was needed. Castle, one thing I did write down about Castle is he plays like he's like a mature rookie. It's just he plays with poise. He doesn't let himself get rushed. He gets to the basket, takes strong takes. He's got a physical body. And the great thing with the Spurs team, as I was getting into before I saw Brenham's name, was defensively they have the ability to clamp. When you get a Sochan, Wemby, Stephon Castle lineup in just those 3 alone, you have the ability to force teams to go multiple minutes without getting buckets. And if you're doing that and they're getting out in transition, they're using their athleticism, their speed, their length, and then their three-point shooting when you have Champagne in, when you have Malachi when he is hitting, Wemby in transition, Barnes in transition, Paul in transition. You get into those rhythms and those flows where this team can be truly dangerous. And this is what the team's going to have to get to when they can get out in transition. But one thing in the fourth quarter when we move on to the fourth quarter and kind of how things were, Sochan ended with 22. Wemby had 14 and 20 with 4 blocks. He had himself a game. Chris Paul played a nice sound game. Zach Collins, I actually liked what Zach Collins did off the bench. He plays good reserve basketball. Is truly what he does. And he plays good reserve basketball, and that's why I like to have him on this roster. I know he's been someone that's been in massive trade talks, but Keldon Johnson, not his best game. Couldn't shoot from the outside. They're only 10 to 33 from 3. Not the worst thing in the world, but still not a great clip. You want to be at least 36% as a team, and they have the ability to do so when they're taking good threes, and for the most part, there are good threes. A couple logo threes from Wemby where you're like, yeah, I'll let 1 or 2 slide, but like he's starting to fall in love with the logo threes, which he can get it because the range is there. It's just you don't want him to fall in love with it too much. But the one thing that I didn't love with this whole team is right after that run, they got it to within 3. 5, it was like 91-86, they got 97-93, and then the pace of play slowed down. The Rockets were able to control themselves, and they were getting good baskets via the Sengun, Jalen Green pick and roll action. Off of that, you've got a Jabari Smith kind of can make plays happen. You've got Van Vliet able to make things happen off the bounce. So you got multiple people who can get their own shot. As Wemby can be up top and dribble and get his own shot, you don't want him doing that all the time because he's not Durant. I know obviously Durant is his idol and he loves Durant, obviously the work ethic and everything there, and he has Durant-like skills as a big who can actually put the ball on the deck and hit threes, step backs and things, but you don't only want him as that. You want that size within 22 feet and in. You want to see a little bit of that Dirk style where he can back down and then hit you with the fadeaway. And other than that, they don't really have shot creators right now. Keldon Johnson can be. He's more of a get downhill kind of guy. Stephon Castle can be. Like, those two are not really like kind of shot creators. Wesley can get downhill. Brenham can get downhill too. So like those guys can, but that's where you're missing Devin Vassell because he's a true 8 seconds left on the shot clock. Get out of the way. I'm really going to get into my bag and make it so I get a good shot off. Chris Paul can orchestrate an offense, great, but he is not in that phase of his career anymore where he can just legitimately, all right, switch, break you down, step back, beautiful moves that you saw in New Orleans, you saw in LA, you saw when he was in Phoenix, even when he was going on that run with them. So, even OKC as well. But that's the one thing that they are missing is they need that guy when things break down to go get their own shot. Barnes is a spot-up shooter. I mean, he can, but it's nothing you're going to be like, oh, man, Barnes has got it. Like, I love this kind of matchup. Sochan's not really going to do it. It's the NBA, so everybody in a possession or two can go do it, but you want someone consistently who's able to break down the defense. That's something that they could add to their bench, and maybe Wesley and Brenham could evolve into being that guy consistently because they do have that ability. They truly do have that ability, but consistently at the elite level or high level bench play, they don't fully have that, and that's where you're missing Vassell. But overall, I thought that the Spurs played a good game in the fight and the grit that they did show. I loved it. I truly loved the grit and the grind that they did show throughout it. And I just wanted to also showcase here, this is Jalen Green in the second half. 3 of 12. They made a conscious effort to show bodies, to get switches, to make other people beat him. He's good enough to where and especially since he was already in a little bit of a rhythm, he was going to get a few buckets, get to the line, get to the basket. He did hit a 3, but that's a talented scorer there that you were able to neutralize in the second half, which is a big reason why you got on that run. But overall, I thought that this Spurs game was a good Spurs game. There are things to take away that are good. It's when Wemby's creating early and when he is the focal point of the offense and he has an aggressive mindset, I think that sets the team off. You saw that late in game when he was really trying to put the clamps on the game, and for his own right, he was trying to, okay, defensively, I'm going to try to lock down. Offensively, I'm actually going to be the guy going and making plays, which you love from your superstar. Not that you need to force anything, but you love that from a superstar. You love the defensive ability, that run from the late third to the early fourth, the capabilities that this team has is what you're seeing now. Obviously, 1 and 2, it's early in the season. It's not a big deal. It's just, can you turn these bad habits into good habits, and can you expound upon the good habits that you already have? Because you don't want to get in too much of a hole in this Western Conference, because before you know it, if you do get 2-7, it's going to make it very difficult to get out. That is just, I'm not saying they are, but they got a tough game against Oklahoma City next. If they can get a W there, which was going to be very tough, that might be a good sign of things. You've got Chet Wemby, which is always a good matchup. You've got Chris Paul heading to an old team. Shea's going to be there. Stephon Castle going to see what he can do defensively. So excited for that matchup. That is going to be a fun one. But the San Antonio Spurs, quality effort, quality game. Oh, one thing I didn't touch on that I wanted to. Fourth quarter, I did not love having Keldon Johnson, and he wasn't rolling all game. I did not love having Harrison Barnes in. The second half, he didn't play a key part. From that about 4:30-ish mark to like the 1:30 mark, they went with that. I would have preferred Champagnie. I think the youth and the fact that I like the youth a little bit more, and I like the athleticism that he has a little bit more than Harrison Barnes, and then I would have had Malachi still in for Keldon Johnson. I understand defensively they kind of put you in a little bit of an odd spot, but when you have Victor Wembanyama, you have the alien in the back with the arms and everything, you're able to kind of give up a little bit of that. I would have preferred to keep the same guys that we had in. I didn't love that situation. But again, Pop knows more basketball. He's forgotten more basketball than I know, so he probably sees something that I didn't, which is perfectly fine. That's just my preference. But let me know what you guys thought about the game. Do you think that the turnovers are something to worry about moving forward, or do you think that those are correctable problems? Are you worried at all about the lack of scoring prowess that the Spurs seem to have when they're not in transition, when they're playing in the half court? Or are you guys fine with it, or just think that when Vassell comes back, things are going to kind of fall in line? Let me know what you guys think. Again, couldn't be more excited that the basketball season has arrived for us. We've been itching. We've been waiting for it. We've been having to talk mock trades and all of that stuff. We now get to what we want, which is basketball. But this has been Spurs Digest with Keenan Warner. I appreciate all of you guys, and I will be seeing you guys very soon.